In this lab, we are going to take a look at Cisco's Packet Tracer. Cisco's Packet Tracer is excellent software for learning about networking, testing network configurations. Cisco released version 7 of Packet Tracer in May of 2016, basically for free for the first time ever. Previously, you had to enroll in a special Cisco training course and pay hundreds or thousands of dollars to go through these training courses to learn how to use Cisco's networking equipment, but now it's free, so we are going to use it quite a bit in this course. So I've got the document. First thing that we need to do is register for a NetAcad course. So NetAcad, it's Network Academy, it's a Cisco site. Click this link, it'll bring you to the About Packet Tracer course. So they have an online self-paced tutorial course to introduce you to Packet Tracer. So follow that link and you'll come down. We want Packet Tracer for Windows or Linux. We're going to be installing it on a Windows machine. It's an hour self-paced course. We're going to sign up just so that we can access Packet Tracer. Feel free to go through the course if you want to, but it's not required for the class. I'm going to click Sign Up. You'll need to enroll your first name, last name, and email. Do the text verification and submit. You do have to enter a valid email address here. Cisco will send you an email that you'll have to verify your account. So follow those email prompts. If you want to do this right now, pause the video, go ahead and sign up. Now once you've signed up, you can come to netacad.com. So I'm going to log in. I'm going to paste in my password. Don't want to save it. Now when you're registered, you'll see the courses I've enrolled in. I'm enrolled in the Packet Tracer 101 course. So I'm going to click the button to launch the course. Even though it says it's ended, I still have access to it. I haven't taken away my access yet, which is great. So I'm going to launch this course. And here are the learning objectives, kind of a description of this course, what it's all about. Everything looks good. I'm going to use the link to launch this course. We don't have to really learn anything about the author, so I'm going to go ahead and click Next. It tells you about Packet Tracer. I mean, feel free to read this on your own time. I'm not going to read it with you on this video. The key part of this page, it says if you do not have the installation file, please click here to access Packet Tracer resources or contact your instructor. You don't need to contact me, just go ahead and use the link here in the page. Here's where we can download the software. So I'm going to choose the 64-bit download for Windows. Basically everybody has a 64-bit operating system now. So choose the 64-bit download, save that file, then you'll have the executable on your desktop. So just run this installation. Accept the license agreement, accept the default installation path. It will create the start menu. If you don't want the desktop icon, uncheck that. If you want it, keep it there. It doesn't really matter. And click Install. It should go fairly quickly. It's installing a bunch of stuff onto our machine right now. We don't need to restart our computer. We can just ignore this pop-up message right now about the skills-based assessment. So I'm going to click OK and finish. So I'm going to keep that box checked. Launch Cisco Packet Tracer. It's coming up. Now I've already registered Packet Tracer. The first time that you launch it, you may be asked to log in. And so you'll have to use your Network Academy login account, your username and password. Once you enter it, it'll basically unlock Packet Tracer, and you won't have to enter in that username and password again. If you don't register it, you can dismiss that login. However, Packet Tracer will be limited. You can only save your work 10 times before Packet Tracer basically just locks you out. So this is really good software. Excellent for learning about networking. So I'm going to drag these instructions over, size things out a little bit better, use our space well. All right, we registered, we logged in, we downloaded Packet Tracer, we installed it. Now here's where we're actually going to start doing some networking in Packet Tracer. Down here in the bottom left, you have different types of devices that you can add to your workspace. So I'm going to click on this switch icon, and I can see a bunch of different types of switches that I can add. We are going to use the 2960 switch heavily. So I'm going to click on that switch, and then you can see my cursor changed into a plus, and the 2960 switch, it's got this no symbol. I'm going to click, and it's going to add that switch to the workspace. You can also drag and drop either way to get things onto my workspace. I'm going to delete this one just so the instructions match. Now the devices that you have may differ depending on the version of Packet Tracer. For example, this screenshot is actually from a slightly older version of Packet Tracer. It has these 2950 switches that don't exist in my version of Packet Tracer. Cisco just doesn't include them anymore. But we're just always going to use the 2960. Got a switch in my workspace, so that's good. Now let's look around here. I want to click on End Devices. And I want a generic computer. So I'm going to click on that computer, add it to the workspace. I'll click and drag and add another one. So now I've got one switch and two computers. So I'm going to make it look similar to the screenshots in the lab guide. I'm going to click this lightning bolt connection. The lightning bolt icon represents our connections. Previously, when we connected two computers directly, we used an Ethernet crossover cable. Here we are going to use a copper straight through. So this cable represents a regular Ethernet cable. So when I click that, here's an important thing. I'm not going to click and drag. You click once, and you can see my icon is changed. It looks like kind of like an ugly end of an Ethernet cable. I'm going to click on the PC once, left click, and then it asks me what I want to connect this Ethernet cable to. Well, I only have one Ethernet port here, so I'm going to connect it to fast Ethernet 0. And now we can see the line is connected to that PC. Now I'm going to single click on top of my switch, and Packet Tracer will ask me where I want to connect this. So I'm going to connect it to fast Ethernet 0/1. So now those two devices are connected. So the PC, you can see we got a green blinky light on the PC end. We've got an amber light on the switch right now. About 10 or 15 seconds after we connect it, should turn green. Let's make sure it's working. All right, we have 2 green lights, that's good. So I'm going to connect the other computer. I'm going to click the straight through cable, click on PC 1, choose fast Ethernet 0, and then I'm going to connect that to fast Ethernet 24 on the switch. So now instead of connecting 2 computers directly, we are going to go through a piece of hardware called a switch. We can connect up to 24 different computers to this switch so they can all communicate at the same time. So that looks good. So our diagram is beginning to look like this diagram here. You'll notice here the labels are slightly different. I'm going to come up here to Options in Packet Tracer and choose Preferences. There's a lot of preferences here. I don't use all of them. The 2 most important ones I would say are always show port labels in Logical Workspace and show device name labels. So I'm going to uncheck show device name labels and I'm going to check always show port labels in Logical Workspace. So here I can see now this matches what the lab guide looks like. So I'm going to keep that for now. I might change them back and forth. Sometimes it's helpful to see the device name, sometimes it's helpful to see the ports. Now these computers need a little bit of explanation. So we're going to go over that when we configure our client in Packet Tracer. In Packet Tracer, the PCs are like a stripped down version of Windows PCs. So if we want to configure this computer on the left, I'm just going to click on it and it's going to pop up this window. Packet Tracer loves pop-ups, you just have to get used to it. So if I want to change this computer's IP address, I'm going to click Desktop, and this is kind of like your Windows desktop where you can get to the control panel, the command prompt, these types of things. I'm going to click IP configuration. This is like our Internet Protocol version 4 settings in Windows. So I'm going to, in the IP address field, make sure static is selected. I'm going to enter 192.168.1.10. And when I click in the subnet mask, Packet Tracer is just going to fill it in for me. This is good. I'm going to leave the default gateway and everything else just as is for now, just blank. Notice that I don't have to click save anywhere here. As soon as you enter this information, basically it's saved. So I'm going to click this X here to close the IP configuration. I'm going to close the other X to close the pop-up window. So that PC is configured. So that's been set. Now I'm going to change the other computer. I'm going to click Desktop, IP configuration, change it to, it tells me to change it to 1.20. So 192.168.1.20. So /24, that means 255.255.255.0. It's just a different notation. Remember we talked about bits? 24 bits, 24 ones means 255.255.255.0. Those are 3 octets, 3 times 8, 24. That's the connection. Okay, so I'm going to close PC 1 now. Close everything. So now if we want to verify connectivity, let's go into the first computer, the one on the left, and I'm going to click the command prompt to launch it. That looks a lot like the Windows command prompt.
And we should try to ping the other IP address. So ping 192.168.1.20, and let's see if it works. So this time, it worked the first time. When we were dealing with real Windows computers, remember what we had to do? We had to disable the Windows firewall before we could ping each other. In Packet Tracer, these don't have firewalls by default, so we don't have to worry about disabling any firewalls. We also don't have to disable any Wi-Fi network adapters or anything. So you should see that the ping is successful. So go to the other computer, see if you can ping the first one. See if you can do it without me showing you how to do it. Pause the video if you need to. .10 is the IP address, so I get a reply. So the ping works both ways. It is good to check that it works both ways. Sometimes it won't. All right, we've got two PCs, we've got a switch here. We don't have any routers yet. Routers move packets between different networks. So I am going to click Network Devices here in Packet Tracer. Routers will be selected if you're just selected network devices. I'm going to add the 1941 router. Basic router works well. Drag it onto the workspace. One thing we have to do here, click on the router. In Packet Tracer, it'll pop up. We see the physical configuration of this router. I have a couple, I know it's very small. Packet Tracer just does not like to use big icons. There are a couple of Ethernet ports here. There's a power switch right here. I'm going to click this power button to turn it off. Watch that green light. It's about 2 pixels big, but there it goes. The power's off. The green light is gone. Now that that power button is off, I can drag this 2-port serial interface card onto my switch. So this is simulating adding this interface card. We're modifying the hardware right now. We're screwing it in, we're connecting it, and now I'm going to turn this router back on. When this router is powered on, it's not going to let me move this module. When it's off, I can change the configuration. So now that it's on, that's good. That's the way that I want this router. So remember, to add these serial ports, you have to turn the router off in Packet Tracer, drag the module into the blank space, turn it back on. Okay, so we've done that. So let's add a second router. So I'm going to drag this 1941 router over to the side. So see if you can pause the video, see if in Packet Tracer if you can do that. If you can change the router's physical configuration to add serial interfaces. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Power off my router, drag the serial interfaces on, power those back on. All right, we are going to connect these routers then and connect the first router to a switch. So I'm going to click the connections icon. I'm going to pick this copper straight through cable. And let's see. It doesn't tell me which interface, so it doesn't really matter. I'll connect it to this gigabit Ethernet 01 to gigabit Ethernet 00. Those are connected. They're both red. They should be red at this point. Now I'm going to add a serial cable
So there are two serial cables, serial DCE and serial DTE. It's basically the same cable, but one side is DCE, one side is DTE. And we'll go over what that means in detail later. I'm going to click serial DCE. DCE stands for Data Communications Equipment. And I'm going to click on my router. And I'm going to choose serial 000. And I'm going to connect it to the other router, serial 000 again. So these lights are red, meaning that these interfaces are down. It's just the way it goes. Let's jump into this. Let's do some configurations of this switch. So these Cisco devices are managed, meaning that they just don't, out of the box, they can do some basic functionality, but they're really meant to be configured by a qualified professional. So I'm going to click on this switch, and I don't care so much about the physical configuration of it right now. You can kind of look. This is basically what we're configuring. There's a bunch of Ethernet ports here. We've got two computers plugged in and one going to a router. I'm going to come to CLI, that's the command line interface. There's some status messages here that we don't have to worry about too much. In here I'm just going to hit enter, and the prompt changes to switch greater than. So this mode by default, when you connect, you're in an unprivileged mode. This is called user exec mode. So in user exec mode, we can't see the switch's configuration, we can't make any changes to the configuration. We have to elevate our privileges. It's really important to be familiar with that prompt to know what mode that you are in. So here I'm going to type enable. And my prompt will change. So it changes from switch greater than to switch pound. The pound tells me that I am now in privileged exec mode. This is where I can inspect switch configurations, look at logs, do a bunch of things. If I want to actually make configuration changes, I have to go into config mode. So I can type the command configure terminal, that works, but I'm going to exit. There are shortcuts. I can type config t, that also works, or I can type conf t, they all work. If I use the exit command, it essentially bumps me out of the current mode to the previous one. Notice that when I type exit here, I don't see any prompt. I'm just going to hit enter, and it'll bring me back to that prompt. Okay, so if I type exit again, it essentially brings me totally out. I hit enter, and you can see that I'm back into user exec mode. So here I'm going to try typing the command show run. This command shows the running configuration of your switch or router if you're running it on a router. I'm going to hit enter. It says invalid input detected at the marker. Well, that's no good, right? If we want to see the configuration, we need to run that command. The problem is this is a perfectly valid command, but we're running it in the wrong mode. So I'm going to go back into privileged exec mode again. So I'm going to type enable, or if you want to, you can use the shortcut en. Type it out for you. Enable. Now if I type show run, it's the exact same command that I ran before, But now that I've got this pound sign here, it's going to work. So it says building configuration, current configuration, 1045 bytes. Has the version, some information about this switch, how it's configured. There are a whole lot of exclamation points here. That's just a way of Cisco terminating the line instead of ending some of these lines with a blank. It says there's more information. If you hit the Enter key, it will output the information line by line. If you hit the space bar, it will page through the information. So we can see here we got interface fast Ethernet 0/5. We're going to hit space bar. It's showing me a whole lot more lines. Hit space bar again. We're going through a lot more information. Hit spacebar a few times. We get to the end of the configuration. So all that information tells me just how my switch is configured to run. The first time you look at it, it's going to look like a mess. You'll become more familiar with it. Showing the running configuration is a great way to troubleshoot what is actually going on in your switch, checking for problems, misconfigurations, etc. So know how to issue the show run command. So here we are. Let's talk about what we've done so far. So in Packet Tracer, you should have Packet Tracer on your machine. You should know how to add switches to a network, add computers to a network, add routers to a network, add serial connection modules to a router, use the appropriate cables to connect computers, switches, and routers, change a computer's IP configuration, ping between two computers in Packet Tracer, access a switch's command line interface, and know how to navigate between user exec mode, privileged exec mode, and configuration mode, and show a switch's running configuration. So let's see here. Pop quiz. What's going to happen if I type show run here, hit enter? Stuck. Error, right? Invalid input, because I'm in the wrong mode. So I'm going to type EN, that's the shortcut for enable. Now if I type show run, hit enter, will it work? Yep, it'll work. So I'm just going to hit spacebar a bunch of times till it gets through. I'm going to use conf-t to configure terminal. Now here's a question for you. What if I run show run here? I've got the pound symbol, but I'm also in config mode. So what's going to happen? Might as well test, right? I'm going to hit enter. Invalid input, but I see the pound symbol. That's not right. Well, because I'm in config mode, this command won't work. I could do two things. I can exit out of config mode, hit enter, and then do show run again. That works. Or the other way, if I am in config mode, I can prefix that show run with do. So I can run do show run. And now this command will work. This will make it so if you're making configuration changes and you want to issue the show run command, you don't have to exit, show run, and then go back into config mode. Using the do show run or other do commands can Save you just exiting and getting back into config mode again and again. So this is good. So the do command is helpful. That's a little bonus. If you want to play around with this, try adding a new computer, a new device to this network. See if you can ping it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to connect this Ethernet to the switch. Doesn't really matter which Ethernet port I plug it into. I'm going to change its IP configuration. Let's see, if I ping right now, it's going to fail because this port isn't active yet on the switch. The switch is still negotiating, still figuring out who's connected. Now it's green. Now the ping starts working. So as soon as that light turned green, now my ping started to work. So if I ping again, 4 successful replies. Whoops. There's no 210. Control C to stop that. Can I ping 20? Yes, I can ping 20. So that's good. So this computer can ping these other ones. Some other bonus stuff I'll talk about here. I'm going to come to these preferences again, and I'm going to hide the port labels for now. I'm going to show the device name labels. Let's say I don't like PC 0, 1, and 2. I want to change those. Well, you can click on that label and you can change it. So I can call this computer A. I can call this one computer B. Now, one kind of frustrating thing about Packet Tracer is that it doesn't show you when you're clicking on the right spot. So if I click a little bit too high, all of a sudden this whole computer configuration pops up instead of just changing that label. I can come here to config, this config tab, and I can change this to computer C. You can see it's changed in my workspace there. So I'm going to close this. You can drag things around, replace them. If you don't like that computer, let's say computer C, have to get rid of it. I can click this X, and now whatever I click on is going to be deleted. So I could delete this cable, boom, gone. I can delete this computer, computer C, boom, gone. So I can go delete happy and just delete everything from my workspace if I want to. If I want to get back into selection mode, I can click this top icon with the arrow and the dotted rectangle. Now we can start moving things around again. So Packet Tracer, it's a little bit funny. There's a little bit of a learning curve just to know how to add things to the workspace, how to connect everything. But it's really powerful. Lets you simulate what real physical networking equipment looks like and how it works.